I must say that was a very good episode of The Walking Dead. Um, Man, oh man, dude, I don't even know where I start with this one. Um, it episode 3, season 9, warning signs. I was doing a little impromptu on the fly check right there for the name. This the ending of this episode hit me like a ton of bricks. Now, it continues the cliffhanger from the previous episode. Someone's capturing the saviors, killing them, turning them into zombies. Um, they show that the guy, the asshole guy from the second episode, was stabbed. Now, it was funny because a lot of people were doing predictions. I saw as to who was killing these saviors. Some people said it was Daryl. Some people said it was the Whisperers. I actually thought it was between Daryl and the Whisperers. And in this episode, Rick actually directly confronts Daryl and says, "Hey, look, the stabs on their chest, they're little, they're circular. It looks like, a crossbow could have done it, And the way Daryl's handling the conversation, I could tell he didn't do it, but once again, I have to applaud Angela Kang because, like I told you guys with the previous episode, from beginning to end with this episode, it was just I was wrapped in, and there was payoff. There was payoff within the episode. We had the cliffhanger from the last episode, but that episode had its content too. It had its own content that was packed episode from the beginning to end, and the same thing can be said of this episode. And I had no idea because all right, spoiler warning, they do reveal who was taking and killing the saviors, and I'm going to reveal it right now. It was Sydney and the Oceanside women, which they gave you no indication that it was going to be them. There were a few scenes with Sydney in this episode where she was clearing out a barn of walkers or like a shed of walkers with Maggie. She's kind of the representative of the Oceanside residents since her grandma was the leader, I guess. So she was at that round table meeting with Carol, Daryl, Rick, and Maggie. Since Carol is now kind of the leader of the Saviors, now that she's kind of taken over for Daryl, I guess you would say that the major leaders are there, except Ezekiel. Ezekiel wasn't there. So I didn't see it coming, man. I didn't see it coming, and I didn't know who it was because Daryl saw the weapon, how it was used to kill them, and he's like, "Oh, I know who did it." And I was like, "Well, I don't know who did it. Who the heck is it?" So I was literally, until the moment they showed it, I didn't know who it was going to be. Now they were alluding to this school or church or whatever the heck this building was. I guess the Oceanside people, the men and women combined, had once lived at this place before Simon and the Saviors actually found them and subjugated them to whatever crap that they were supposed to do and killed the men, including Sydney's 11-year-old brother. She gives a very, very tearful address of that whole episode, and they literally have Arat, one of Negan's lower level lieutenants, literally on her knees. And let me just say, as soon as Maggie and Daryl came across them, I yelled. I actually said it. I called it out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to allow them, the Oceanside people, to kill Arat." And sure enough, Sydney explains the reasoning, explains that it was Maggie's decision to hang Gregory that kind of influenced her to do this. And it's funny because from a historical standpoint, and I'm talking world history at this point, if you think of the biggest atrocities on the planet, history-wise, the one historical reference I was able to bring it back to was the Nuremberg trials. For any of you World War II history buffs out there, these were a series of trials that were performed after the Axis powers, which was Germany, Italy, and Japan, after they lost the war. Many of the Nazis who had been in charge of these concentration camps and had committed huge war crimes, they were basically put on trial and they were executed for basically crimes against human life, because it was just basically human. I mean, because you could be a soldier in the field following orders and stuff, but like, there's a certain level of cruelty that's just beyond being a soldier wielding a gun. So the Allied powers decided that there should be, this should be capital punishment for these individuals. So the Oceanside residents have kind of taken this principle into their own hands. Maggie, of course, you saw, took that in her decision into her own hands with Gregory. And so it was interesting that Maggie was sort of indirectly responsible for some of the saviors that went missing. And this was the whole conflict during the episode. The saviors, Regina, obviously Arat, Laura, they were all the three known saviors that we've known from previous seasons. They were all pissed off about this. They kind of had a throwback to earlier seasons where they had the saviors roadblock. Maggie and this guy from the hilltop are trying to deliver food, and they kind of intimidate her. There's two asshole guys who corner Carol and Rick in the woods. Obviously, Carol, being a badass, is able to get the upper hand. As soon as I saw that knife slipping down her shirt, I was like, there's no way this guy's getting out of this alive. Carol's too much of a badass. So I like that though, because that was like the huge conflict that the saviors were like, who's taking our people? They obviously don't agree with the terms. Ever since Negan's been lost, they haven't really had a true leader by which they hail from. Daryl hates the concept that they even have to live amongst these people that they were just at war with, months back, years back. I like the way Angela Kang framed this, and I felt it, man. It was just like a drop. Like, I was just like, when Daryl and Maggie walked away, and then you see between them, you see Sydney stab Arat through the head in the exact spot where her brother was executed, and what Arat apparently said to the brother, like, she was making Sydney beg for his life, and this was an 11-year-old kid. Like, just, it was evil. Like, what Arat did was evil. But the thing is, like, you could really be on either side of this conflict, because Arat was crying. She was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm one of you guys now. I'm sorry. And, she had that brief conversation with Rosita where they brought back the scene where she cut her face, and they seemed to kind of have a joke about it. And, man, again, this... it's interesting, though, that it took this long for Sydney and the Oceanside to take action against the saviors that they believed were responsible. Obviously, the thing is, it's easy to see how these people did this, because the saviors most of them were just cocky assholes who just intimidated people by brute force and just by being assholes. We saw that with Jared, the long-haired guy that freaking killed Benjamin and shot him. He was like the poster child for what most of the saviors were. And Negan was the guy who swung around the bat and kind of, I'm pretending to hold a bat, but he embodied that. But he had it under control so that he could maintain his empire, so to speak. But a lot of these guys just kind of abused their power because they knew the saviors were the ultimate force at that point. So now that they have to live in this new world that Rex created, civilized society, it's not vibing well with them. And so, especially in a situation where their people are being taken, yeah, you can see how the conflict was going to be exasperated in this episode on a massive scale. Again, they're giving Daryl more lines of dialogue. I really like that. There was a scene separated from all of this savior stuff. There was a scene where Rick and Michonne are talking to each other, and Rick's talking about the future, how he appreciates Michonne, how he really cares about it. It's like getting lovey-dovey. It's like, okay, we've had the Rick and Michonne relationship since midway of season 6. Like, okay, like I'm cool with where this is at. But then he talks about there's other ways to plan for the future, and I'm like, and then I obviously with what AMC can show, they didn't really show enough, but like they kind of embrace and then they go down and the camera's just planted in one angle and then it cuts. They seem to imply that Rick and Michonne are trying to have a kid, which obviously is very different from the comics because Rick does not make this attempt with Andrea, who's his comic book counterpart to Michonne. Uh Um, you see, the thing is, if Rick. Okay, so here's the thing, though, because Rick's legacy would technically be continued if Rick dies or leaves forever, then his child that Michonne has would be the continuation of his bloodline, because again, this is the assumption that Judith is Shane and Laurie's kid. But yeah, I'm not sure if they did that on purpose because they knew Rick was leaving, and it's like, oh, here, because even Negan says it when Rick goes to talk to Negan in prison. Negan's like, oh, your family's gone, Rick, and so I was like, yeah, now that Carl's dead, like once Rick's gone, like Rick's whole bloodline is just done. So the only way he could fix that is by having a kid with Michonne. I mean, hell, they've been together for a while. I'm surprised it hasn't happened sooner. Um, but I mean, if that's their setup for Michonne to be pregnant sometime in a later episode, there is one character in the comics that gets pregnant from. There's two known characters that get into a relationship and then one of them gets pregnant. And it's around this point, but it doesn't concern Rick or Michonne or Andrea. It doesn't concern any of them. So that's an interesting thing we're gonna have to see developed. I don't know where it's gonna go, but afterwards, continuing with that family feeling, it was it was nice to see a lighter side. Just it wasn't just meandering through the woods killing zombies. I liked that Rick was playing with his daughter Judith, and they were having a picnic, and they even said this in The Talking Dead. Like, this is what Rick fought the war for. This is what he's been fighting for, to have civilized society where they don't have to always fear having to take down a bunch of walkers. They can have the lighter moments and try to pretend like society is still functioning like it once was. And I like that they slowed down and showed those moments, especially since, of course, Rick has only a few episodes left. So any chance we get at seeing Rick happy and, living the life that he fought so hard for, I'm just going to paint that picture in my head and say, you know what, Rick, you did it. You fought 9 seasons, you went through hell, but you know what? I can look at this one image of you playing with Judith and hanging with Michonne on this picnic in Alexandria, and I can say that you did it, after all that time. It truly paid off. So I don't know, man. It's just so frustrating knowing what could have been. It's weird thinking a year ago at this time, Rick was still in the show. We didn't even know about Carl, what was going on with him. And the visions that Rick had of the future where it was, Carl's there, Judith is older. I was like, oh, this is probably just a scene to when they win the war. And I'm like, oh, but they're Carl's dreams because he's going to die. And I was like, ugh, I don't know, man. I'm still dreading the fact that in 2 weeks we're gonna have to deal with the death of Rick Grimes, or just him being gone. I don't care if he died, whatever happens to him. They keep building this up, man. I mean, they keep reminding us on freaking Talking Dead. There's advertisements all over AMC. It's like, yes, we get it. You're killing off your main character and possibly shooting your entire show into the fucking sun. I don't know why you're doing it, but or why you didn't try to give Andrew Lincoln more money to stay, whatever the fuck the alternative was. But It just sucks, man, because you know why it sucks? These first 3 episodes have been really good. And this is what I was hoping for from this show with Angela Kang as showrunner. And that was like a new beginning. Like the intro is new, the previously on The Walking Dead is new. Like everything about this show is just new and fresh. Daryl has more dialogue. Every episode is rewarding. You don't have to wait fucking 6 weeks to get payoff from the thing that you saw in the first episode. I mean, yeah, sure, there's a little bit of that, but episode to episode, there's payoff, and it's not just cliffhangers, and it's good stuff. I like Angela Kang being in control, and I had the feels, man. This episode 3 gave me the feels, and I was invested with everything the characters were going through, and it's just so annoying that we have to lose Rick, because I don't get a semblance that Rick's story is going to end. That's the thing. There is nothing in these first 3 episodes that has teased Rick leaving or dying. The only thing maybe is the whole helicopter thing with Jadis. The A or a B, she's got this walkie-talkie, she knocks Gabriel out. It looks like even though her entire group of people were mowed down by Simon, I guess what she's been doing is she's been trading some of her own people for supplies in this helicopter. They're from a group that's far away, and they just bring supplies in exchange. So that's going to be interesting. It seems like Gabriel is in some deep shit with Jadis. Reminds me of what she was doing with Negan. Remember when she had Negan trapped in the junkyard, and she tied him down, and the helicopter was coming, and it looks like she might have traded. Oh my god, can you imagine if she traded Negan? Because then Simon would have permanently been in control of the sanctuary. Jeez, that would have taken a big turn. But anyway, that's revisionist history. But I don't know. There's been no indication other than the fact that maybe like Jadis captures Rick and she trades Rick on the helicopter, and the helicopter just takes him to some fairy tale unknown destination and we never see him again. Like, that's a possibility. In the preview clips, it shows a fight scene between Rick and Daryl. Maybe it gets out of control and Rick's left for dead. I don't know, man. It's just, again, these first 3 episodes have shown no indication that Rick is going to leave this show. It seems like things are just getting started with Rick. Rick is finally in this new leadership role of having to maintain a balance and an equilibrium between the Saviors and the Oceanside and the Hilltop and the Alexandria and the Kingdom. He's kind of at the top of the pyramid, and he's just perfect example. I'll leave off with this. In this episode, the Saviors are asking about that long-haired guy that died at the end of the previous episode, in episode 2. They're getting feisty. They're flipping out. Daryl's calling their bluff. Carol and all of the, I guess, good guys, I guess you could call them, have their hands on their holsters to take out their guns. People start fighting. Adrian, the guy who was the Savior, but he kind of turned to Maggie's side last season when he was a prisoner of war. He's trying to break things up. Everyone's going at it, and then Rick freaking Grimes, our main character, rides in on a horse and he cuts right down the middle and divides the group. And his horse is trotting back and forth, keeping people from attacking each other. And he's like, whoa, we're not fighting. We're everyone just calm down. We're not fighting. Stop. Go back to your, whatever you're doing. We'll solve it. Peacekeeper. And everybody knew as soon as Rick wrote in that he was the man, that he was the one that really was kind of the leader of this revolution against Negan. And like, okay, like, Daryl, Carol, like you don't think leadership, like they're like the lieutenants. But as soon as Rick comes riding in on his horse with his new mace and his freaking Colt Python that he's had since the first season, like, shit's about to go down. So perfect example, a metaphor that when Rick Grimes comes in, he is the peacekeeper. He came in and that screamed leadership. That was leadership 101. Everyone's fighting, inner fighting. The leader comes in, everyone's like, oh shit, okay, the leader's here. And again, if you didn't know this, someone could tell you, oh, that guy's going to die in 2 weeks in 2 episodes. You're like, wait, what? Like, he's the guy that seems to be leading this whole thing, keeping everyone together. Like, who are they going to focus on? Like, I just need it to happen, man. I just need it to happen. And you guys will see the reaction. I promised you. I wasn't doing reactions for other episodes of the season, but I will do a reaction for season or episode 5 of this season. And we will see once and for all if this show... Because it's actually making me even angrier, because now that these first 3 episodes are really good... Because, you know, it would be one thing if season 9 kind of sucked. Like, oh, the episodes are slow and it's the same Scott Gimple stuff we didn't like. But these episodes are good, man. They're really good. And I just don't understand why Andrew Lincoln has to go. So much to look forward to with the Whisperers, and just this conflict keeps festering with the Saviors. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I just don't understand. I don't get it at all. And I'm probably going to be saying the same thing. I've been saying the same thing for months, for weeks. I'm just so pissed. Maybe I'll finally be able to move on once it finally happens. But I just hate this whole thing, man. I'm just so frustrated. And that's part of the reason why I don't do these reaction videos anymore. But there's a multitude of reasons. I still have that video saved on my computer. I got to upload it for you guys. Some of my fans were surprised that I wasn't doing the reactions. And I go on a long-winded kind of rant about it. I'll put the video up at some point in the coming days to fill the gap between my football videos and my Walking Dead videos. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll be putting this up on the Monday because I'll be uploading my Patriots video for the Sunday. Yeah, good episode. I really liked it. 9.5 for me. But I'm just really dreading whatever the fuck they're doing with Rick. Imagine if they didn't tell us. Imagine if I'm like really getting like in the groove. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good season. Then episode 5 comes around and then Rick gets booted off the fucking show. And I'm like, what? Literally, I would have flipped my computer. Like, I would have been like, are you shitting me sideways? So, we'll see, guys. We'll see. We'll have to see. So, anyway, thanks. Peace out.